All right. What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Writing Friction. Super excited for today. I got a very cool author on. His name is Michael Farris Smith. What's going on, Michael? Say hello to
Oh man,
everybody.
good to see you. Hello, everyone.
How you doing, man? And you are recording from Oxford, Mississippi, right?
That's correct.
What's going on over there?
Oh, probably about the same thing that's going on everywhere.
Yeah, a whole lot of nothing. Yeah,
Whole
I
lot
don't
of
know.
nothing. Whole lot of
Um,
white. Whole lot of counting the leaves on the trees. That's what I've been doing.
have you
What?
been doing? Have you been doing any writing?
Well, it's been weird because I have two daughters, so with
Okay.
them having, with the shutdown and everything, kids being home,
Mm-hmm.
been very hit or miss.
Mm-hmm.
Not writing much fiction. In fact, almost writing no fiction. But I've been doing some screenplay
Oh,
stuff,
okay.
adaptation stuff from some of my work with some things we got going on. So I can do that a little easier. You can jab at that stuff a little better than you can. Like when I'm writing a novel, like I like to know where I'm going to be every day at a certain time and kind of get the
Uh-huh.
groove. But so I don't know. It's been kind of bouncy, but it's just the way life is. You just kind of roll with it.
When you're saying you kind of can jab at, I box, so I'm going to do physical things. When you say you can jab at a screenplay, are you talking about the fact that you can kind of come and go with it? You don't need to totally be involved with it all the time, as opposed to if you're working on a novel, needing to live inside of that world.
Yeah, absolutely. I find that writing a script is much different than writing anything else I've ever done, and it is. You can like pop in and out of scenes or, there's just not, I don't know, there's a great depth to novel writing. That's what I really enjoy, just the complete immersion of it, like where it almost never leaves you. And doing script work's just a little bit different. Well, for one thing, um, a couple of the things have been like based on like one my own work. So I already know the story, so it's not
Well,
like
okay, yeah, that was a question I was going to ask. I mean,
yeah.
with when it comes to screenwriting, well, I mean, I guess when it comes to really any kind of writing, whether it be a novel or a screenwriting or anything, do you know the end already? Do you know where you're getting to? I mean, some authors, write and they just don't know where it's going to go. Some authors know the final sentence of their work. Do
Yeah.
you work that way? And if so, do you work that way differently as opposed to a novel and a screenplay?
As a novelist, I work completely by the seat of my pants.
Boom.
Like
Okay.
just I usually like each of my novels is just started with this like really distinct strong image in my mind that I just can't get rid of.
Mm-hmm.
And when I can't stop thinking about it, that's how I kind of know this is what you need to try. This is what you need to dive into and see what it's all about.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just start with that, and I following my characters, like see where they're going or what they're doing, and what has put them in the place they are currently in.
Mm-hmm.
And like I'll work for a while, and then when I get done working at the end of the day, I'll make a few notes for like what I think might be coming next, and then the next morning I kind of have a jumping off point. But I don't like plot too far ahead with novels.
Mm-hmm.
um, I mean, the main thing for that is, to me, has always been I like the notion of discovery that comes with it every day. And I feel like if I'm really discovering as I go along, like if I don't really know what happens until it happens, then I feel like it's going to transfer to the reader. And they're
Mm-hmm.
going to have that same experience of discovery and curiosity and notions of revelation as they go through the novel, just like I do.
Yeah.
I get asked all the time, well, how did you know when that was going to happen or when that was going to happen or when did you see that coming? I'm like, when you knew it, that's pretty much when I knew it.
Yeah, and it's amazing how when we're writing, you have your good days and your bad days, and you could talk about, as long as you're just doing it every day, you're
Yeah.
going forward. But there are times where even in my own writing, I've only released my first book, just a couple of. Actually, that's how we're even really talking. You released your book Blackwood right around the same time I released my first book, and I kind of caught wind of you on Instagram. And then the pandemic hit, and then now we're both sitting in our homes.
That's right.
Yeah. But going back to that, I mean, I remember writing that first book, and that day, it was always exciting. You never knew where the next sentence would go.
Right.
I knew it was I wrote a boxing novella, and I knew he was in a gym, he was in New Jersey. There were things, and there are things in that universe you can work with, those tools, right? But
Right.
the idea of discovery in your own mind of just like,
Yeah.
even one word can just boom take you off.
Yeah, and I think those are the best days when you have those moments that surprise you. Like you sit
Yeah.
down and you think you may know what you're doing or have an idea of like where what the scene is going to be. And when you're done at the end of the day, it's something completely different, but it's something completely better than you thought it might be. And that's when like something else is like completely taken over. And you've got to be free to like just let it happen, you know. And like you said, it can be as simple as like a character saying something you didn't expect them to say that drives the narrative in a different direction or opens up some type of door or opens up some type of emotion within a scene that you didn't see coming.
Hmm. And even on those like crappy days of writing where it's just not working, again, like you said, a character can say a line of dialogue, or you can even add a different accent
Yeah.
to a character, and then boom, you're just you're kind of yeah, you're just off to the races. So for people who don't know, and again, we're kind of just meeting for the first time, really. How did you get into writing? Were you always into reading, writing as a kid? Was it kind of something you picked up later in life, or what kind of brought you to where you are right now?
Oh man, it's a long and winding road, I'll tell
Yeah,
you that.
we all have one. Yeah, yeah,
I mean, it's one of those things I could have never ever like seen coming.
yeah.
Growing up, I was a decent student, I just did what I had to do, I knew how to make a B, and that was out. And I was a ball player. I was really only into sports, whatever it was in season is what I was playing. And
Okay.
I played baseball. I was 21 years old. And then, when that was done, I was, I had a couple years of college left and I was just kind of not really interested in anything. And
In
it's kind of
Mississippi.
in Mississippi.
Okay.
Yeah. But what happened was a couple of years down the road, I ended up getting a job, living abroad and working in Europe, and
Oh,
it was
okay. We're in Europe.
started out in Geneva,
Okay. Nice.
lived there for a couple of years, yeah. And my job kind of moved me around Western Europe to all the countries, so it was kind of
Cool.
cool. I ended up living in Paris
Nice.
finally. But what happened during those years was I started reading for entertainment because I couldn't watch television and I had language barriers and bouncing kind of from one country to the next too. You only really pick up pieces of,
Mhm.
I eventually learned to speak enough French, to do okay. But I started reading and then I don't know, something just kind of started to like shift in me and change in me. And when that job was over, I came back to the States, came back to Mississippi. I was like 28, 29 years old. And I just thought, well, if you're ever going to try to do something crazy, like try to write, like now is the time to do it.
Mhm.
And I did. I just basically cut free of, whatever kind of career I had at that point or whatever I had going on. I was single. I had no attachments, and I just hunkered down. And I said, "This is what I'm going to do." And it sounds ridiculous to even say that. I did enroll in a writing program at the University of Southern Mississippi, the graduate program there, because I knew like I didn't know anything about it.
Well, I
Like
was gonna say, I mean, before that had you ever taken even a basic writing class ever?
no, no, no,
Yeah, I'm the same way. Yeah.
no. In fact, I remember when I was applying to that program because I knew I needed to be around some real writers. If
Of course.
like I want to speed this process up as much as I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was filling out my application and I was looking at how pathetic it looked. I had like a 2.5 GPA from undergrad. I had bombed the GRE completely because I think I took it at like 7 o'clock on a Saturday morning, and the night
Anything can happen.
before I stayed out all night with the woman who is now my wife.
Okay.
And I bombed the GRE, and I was like, if I mail this in, they're going to throw it in the garbage. I had no writing samples. And so instead of mailing it, I borrowed my dad's truck. I didn't even have a car, and I drove to Hattiesburg, which was like an hour away, and I just walked right up in the office at the Center for Writers at Southern Miss, and I sat down and talked to Reeve Fortenberry, who was the administrator of that program,
Okay.
and I just kind of showed her my application, and just started talking to her about who I was and what I've been doing and my time abroad and why I felt drawn to this. And I guess she felt sorry for me.
Well, I mean, maybe you were a story right in front of her eyes.
Maybe so. But anyways, they somehow let me in to
Okay.
that program. And it was the only program I applied for. So
Yeah.
that was like, that was it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and so that kind of kicked it off. And there I was 29, 30 years old coming to it, but also like with no plan B. I was like,
It's
I'm
literally
not,
my story. Yeah.
yeah, I'm not bullshitting around. Like, this
Yeah.
is what I'm going to do. And I had no idea what that meant at the time. I had no idea though.
Did you have
Or
the idea of that first story, that first book in your head
no,
when you
no, no, no,
nothing?
no.
Literally, you
No.
had fucking
I
nothing.
was like, I was a blank canvas, as
Yeah.
about as blank as you could be.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't had no idea like the work ethic it would take, and that the time it was going to take. And you know, one of my favorite writers is Larry Brown,
Okay.
a Mississippi writer, and I started reading his work and started reading his interviews. And he was 29 when he started, and he was kind of a blue collar guy. He worked all these odd jobs, a lot of it very similar to my own background. And he just decided one day, I feel drawn to this. I want to try it. And he used to call it the apprenticeship. And he's like, you have no idea like when the apprenticeship is going to be over. You
Hmm.
know, it could be 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. You have no idea when you'll break through. And
But if you
that's
don't do it, you never will.
many times,
Yeah.
every day. I mean, you have moments of light. And I mean, even after 5 novels with a sixth novel coming out in January, I still look for things every day, like to keep me motivated or to give me hope or to give me take away the doubt or whatever. And I don't know if that ever goes away. I wish it did, but I don't think it does.
Well, I talk to different writers, and I talk about that a lot. Doubt, and the idea of just battling doubt with my thing is routine, right? So I know every day if I do X amount of work for X amount of time at X time of day, no matter how much doubt is in my head, work is work, right?
Right.
It's like you write 4 sentences, delete three, you still have one. So yeah, so it's refreshing to hear someone who has 5 novels.
Yeah.
And it's going to be refreshing for people who hear this to hear you talk also about doubt. Everyone has doubt.
Every,
I imagine Stephen King still has some doubt.
that's the thing I've learned over the
Can
years.
you do it again?
Yeah. I mean, every time I sit down and look at it, I'm like, okay, now how did I do this again?
Yeah, yeah,
But that's the thing, like over the years, talking to other writers and like getting to know some artists and getting to know some musicians, like it's amazing. And getting to know a few actors, like it's amazing. Like I think we all share this,
mhm,
but we're all kind of hesitant to verbalize it after you have like a certain amount of success, because I think you don't want to admit it, and maybe but it stays there. But the antidote is work, like you said, like, and routine and work, like getting up and doing something, like sitting down, sitting your ass in the
yeah,
chair, whatever it is you do, and just working. If it's
every
30
day.
minutes, if it's an hour, like whatever, it doesn't matter.
Do you
Because
have
that,
a?
as soon as you write that first sentence, and I know you know what I'm talking about, as soon as you write that first sentence, all of that disappears.
Mhm.
All flakes away. It's amazing to me, like how quickly, like it dissipates once you sit down and start turning the wheels and just write a few words, like
Mhm.
because you start your energy and your imagination, it's like somebody flips a switch and the doubt just like falls away, just like
1,000%. I mean, you talked about meeting musicians and artists, and I mean, before I started taking writing seriously, I've been touring in bands since I was 15 years old,
okay.
playing guitar. And just like you said, once you write that first sentence, anytime I was gonna go on stage or do anything with my guitar, you have to spend time warming up,
Yeah,
right, physically. So when I every day when I sit down to write, I know those first 10, 15 minutes are going to be tough.
right,
I'm warming up my brain, you
yeah,
know. That's
yeah,
and then once you get going and you're into that, 10, 15, and then you're kind of off to it. But again, it's the doubt. I think not a lot of people, but some people, and I fall victim to this too, because I'm still so fresh to all this, of falling victim to that doubt at times. But
yeah,
knowing that the routine can save you.
right,
Do you have a routine, like a real strict routine, or I mean, you say you have children.
yeah,
Obviously, life has changed with shelter in place, but do you
right.
normally have a routine?
Yeah, in fact, my children actually were part of me getting pretty strict with a routine, because you don't have much of a choice.
Hmm.
When my daughters were born, they're 9 and 15 now, but probably 6 or 7 years ago, the first thing that kind of happened was I can't write in the house anymore. You know, there's stuff everywhere. Somehow my desk upstairs had become like the place where all the bills were stacking up, and like you want some pressure, you try to sit down
Yeah.
with bills beside you.
Mhm.
That's not going to go very well. So
Mhm.
I found me a little like studio space, and we were living in Columbus, Mississippi at the time, in downtown in one of the old historic buildings. And so I would get up in the morning, take my daughters to like school or daycare or whatever. And as soon as I was done, I'd go right to my studio, and like that's my working time.
Boom.
And that's been my pattern for the past 6 or 7 years. And it's like, and that's where I am right now. I'm in my little space now in Oxford.
Okay.
Same rhythm. I take the girls to school.
Mhm.
As soon as I'm done, I ride around. I listen to tunes for a little bit, like to kind of clear my mind
Yeah.
and settle the hustle of like getting up and getting going in the morning. And then I come right here, and like it's business. Like I know this is my time. This is my business time.
Yeah.
It's my creative time. It's my imagination. It's my playtime, whatever you want to call it.
Mhm.
And I come in here and I work. And when I'm done, then I don't feel the guilt of not working the rest of the day.
Mhm.
And now I can go be daddy. I can go pay bills. I can go run errands. I can do whatever I have to do. And it kind of, marinates in me the rest of the day. Like Hemingway, I kind of learned this from Hemingway. Like he would work in the mornings, and then he would say, I'm gonna let my subconscious have it the rest of the day. And I'm not gonna think of, I'm just gonna let it kind of, and I find that happens a lot. Like you find yourself thinking about it, maybe making a note, or like I never sit down and write anymore, but I'll make a note or two, like when something kind of occurs to me.
Mhm. Like on your phone or something like that, or yeah.
Right.
I
Yeah, it
mean,
used to be on a notepad, but now it's like pop open notes and
mhm.
make a little note, and you've got it right there.
Yeah. I mean, again, we talked before the podcast, and everyone who knows, I own a dog walking business in San Francisco. And there are times where I have 8 dogs with me, and an idea will just, and I have to get it down, and I'll just do a voice memo. I'll just
Yeah.
like dictate, and with a lot of creatives, that's a common theme. Music, again, I'm friends with so many musicians, and I know like if a melody pops, they just boom, and to have that now is just
Yeah.
so. I mean, I would have lost so many ideas.
I, I tell people all the time, man, you better like, if you wake up in the middle of the night and you have an idea, or if you're at the grocery store
Yeah.
walking dogs and you better write it down like right then.
Well,
Because
that's like, yeah, that's like the Keith Richards "Can't Get No Satisfaction" riff.
yeah,
The famous, that he woke up in the middle of the night, recorded it, forgot he recorded it, and then
that's all.
yeah, that's kind of it. I mean, it's almost like if your writing isn't keeping you up at night, maybe you're not doing it right. I don't know.
That's right. Maybe not
Um,
working enough. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So when you're in your space and you're in where you are right now, I mean, when you say you're working is writing, you're researching. I mean, are you very disciplined? Are you going on the Instagram? Like, I mean, how is it, are you really locked in when you're in that space?
Yeah, I have a strict no social media policy, or no screwing around policy till like after 11 o'clock, or really whenever I get, if it takes whatever it takes, it's the work first. And then, like I said, everything else, I kind of have a thing I say to myself, like, you get done with this, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah,
Do whatever you have to do.
yeah.
But let's do this first. Let's take care of what's important
Hmm.
first, while you've got all the energy, while your mind's ready for it, while you know this is your time, while the rest of the world is doing whatever they're doing.
Hmm.
Let's have this as my time, and then after that, I can, do whatever.
Yeah. Well, so that kind of leads me to another question. With your last book that was just released, again, I kind of caught wind of you through Instagram, right? I mean, we can't deny the fact of how great these social media tools can be. Um,
Right.
that said, when you release a book, and obviously you're working with major publishers and things like that, there's discussions, right, about promotion. You got to let people know about this book, and
Yeah.
that takes time and energy. I mean, is that something you like loathe doing? I mean, again, you're talking about things, that's work,
Right.
right? I mean,
It, it is. Yeah.
that's part of being a 21st century author. Uh,
Absolutely.
can
Yeah.
you kind of shine a little light on how you kind of approach that when it comes to promotion and things like that?
Yeah, it is something like I talk about with publicity and marketing, and they have their own ideas and they're doing their own things. But I
Yeah.
think too, like you kind of have to do some stuff yourself.
Mhm.
in coordination. I try to do it in coordination with what's going on, just because it's not my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, yeah,
I think it is necessary, and I think it can be fun too. And
yeah,
like you said, it's a way to find out about a book coming out, or the reviews, or a book tour, or if you're doing a live Zoom event or whatever.
yeah.
Well, I can tell you this, like this year it's been, and you know this, it's been very important because Blackwood came out, I think it was March the 3rd.
Yeah.
And by March the 10th, everything was shut down. Like,
You had book
I,
signings, right? You had a.
oh, I had a whole tour like set up. In fact, I did like 2 or 3 Mississippi events.
Mhm.
Then I went to Memphis and did an event, and the next morning I got on the plane in Memphis to go to Charlotte to head out on book tour. And then the 2-hour flight from Memphis to Charlotte, when I got off the plane in Charlotte and checked my phone, everything had changed. The NBA had canceled their season, the NCAA tournament had been canceled, and all of a sudden everything was being shut down.
Mhm.
And my publicist was like, you should probably just turn around and come back home. And I was like, yeah, I think I should probably just turn around and come back home. So like, not only was like
In the
book,
Charlotte airport.
yeah, but
I know that airport. I spent a lot of time traveling to Florida as a child. My grandparent, and that was New Jersey to Florida. You lay over in Charlotte. I know that airport.
yeah, it's an interesting place to be during the
Yeah, is the Cheers bar still there?
Oh yeah, of course.
yeah. I know it.
But all the indie bookstores closed and
Yeah.
were closed for a few weeks. Even Amazon stopped shipping books. Like
Oh, I didn't know that.
it was like a month to get a book. Like you couldn't like. And same thing happened in the UK. Like
Yeah.
released at the same time in the US and the UK.
Yeah.
And there was truly like no way to get a book in your
Yeah.
hand like within like a few days. You couldn't go to a store. You couldn't get one shipped to you.
Mhm.
So all of a sudden, it was like a very strange thing. Fortunately, the reviews kept going, and I was lucky, to get, some really great reviews in some great places, which I think helped. But, we recorded the guy who owns my building here is a filmmaker, and we did a kind of a cool reading.
I saw that the one where you're like kind of reading on the stool and it's kind of rusty.
Yeah, burned out building.
That's a dope video. Yeah.
So we were pass that around to all the bookstores and everyone who could share it. So, a way to kind of keep yourself out there, the best you can. So I mean, it's a necessary evil, but I think you can have fun with it. I think, as long as you're not, on it all the time and where it's distracting, you from what you're supposed to be doing, which is the next thing, then I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Like you and I wouldn't have hooked up without it. So I mean,
no, like you said, it's a necessary evil. It's just, I always make the joke, like, what would Philip Roth have written on Twitter? You know what I mean? Like, especially in 2020. But yeah, I mean, this distract. I mean, because with writing, you have to spend so much time to write. If I'm pointing at my guitar, if I write a little riff real quick, it's like, oh, I mean, it's there. Like that could take 10 seconds. It doesn't take 10 seconds to write a paragraph. It doesn't even take 10 seconds to write a shitty paragraph. It takes longer than that. So yeah, again, I think a lot of people need to hear this. Like, there's so much good that can come out of it, but at the same time, it's like, especially if you're a writer, man, it could be detrimental to your time.
Well, I think one of the real dangers of it also, particularly in this, nightmare of a political climate we've been in the last 3 years, is that you can get yourself in a really bad mood by like going down the rabbit hole of Twitter or Facebook or or even Instagram now, like with the election coming up. Like you used to not see so much of it on Instagram, but now you see more ads and things. But like you can get yourself, like I have to like consciously like stay away from it. Like if I do use it, I go on there, do what I have to do and get out, because I find myself looking at things and reading things that just put me in such a shitty mood that it really like takes away. I mean, I think the mental health of a lot of people have been affected by the, climate in the last few years. And I have not been averse to that. You can get really ill and depressed over things and aggravated, and that's a big detriment to creativity and the imagination, being in a bad place, spiritually or emotionally, or just being pissed off in general, can
And
really
it could,
screw you up,
yeah,
you know.
and I mean, you could find yourself writing about it almost. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? If you wake up in a shitty mood, but reading some, awful Reddit thread or something like that, and then you start writing, all of a sudden you're writing in a negative tone, where it could affect everything.
that's
Um,
right.
yeah, I mean, I think Zoom is giving us a couple more minutes. We'll kind of keep going. We'll have you back on. Who knows? Yeah, but I want to kind of stick it back to when you first started doing all this, and you were writing that first book. Um, and you have the doubt, and you're picking up, I'm 33, right? So you're late 20s, early 30s. When you were locked into that story, I mean, was there anything that was going to get in your way from finishing that first book? I mean, were you just like overtaken? Were you just kind of like, how did that first book really come about? And then once you had that done, did you feel more freedom after that to continue writing?
Well, I think just like everybody else, I've got a couple of failed experiments in the drawer
Definitely.
or in the landfill or wherever. And I would say, my first novel was not a first novel for a while. I stopped and started a few things. And I was in the habit, like I started out writing short stories and trying to
Okay.
publish stories. But I wanted to get away from that. Like I wanted to do novels. Like that's kind of why I got into it. So when I first started trying to write novels, I would get to like that 50 or 70 page mark and I would just hit the wall because I wasn't like, I hadn't trained, so to speak,
Yeah.
for a novel yet. I was trained in the short story.
Yeah.
But I can remember like once I finally said, I'm going to write a full length manuscript. I don't give a damn what happens. When I get stuck, I'm just going to make something else happen. I'm
Boom.
just going to like walk somebody into the story who hasn't been there. I'm going to do anything, but I'm going to
Well,
make it.
story. It's fiction. You can do whatever you
That's
want.
right. You bring in a gorilla for Christ's sake. Doesn't matter. Do something. And that's kind of the lesson I learned. Do something. Mix things up. Bring in another character. Add dynamic to the story. Bring in some storyline that hadn't been there before. Let's layer this thing. And once I did that, I finally made it through like a novel manuscript. It was like however many words, 60,000 words. But I felt like, God, I did it. I did it. And I think it's okay. I mean, and it was okay, and like I said, it's in a landfill now, but I was at least,
Oh, so that was not the first book that you would go on to publish.
no, 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 no.
Ah, so you wrote an entire novel and literally threw it away.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, everyone needs to hear that. Okay,
Oh
good.
yeah, absolutely. I probably wrote a couple of, quarter length novels
Yeah.
and threw them away before I wrote a novel and threw it away before I finally like hit on an idea that I was like, okay, I feel like this is different. And
Okay.
I felt it was different for a couple of reasons. Like I was more trained and kind of seasoned for the longer form.
Yeah. Yeah.
During all that writing and all that throwing away, I was getting better. You
Okay.
know, I was continuing to get better. My sentences were getting better. I was continuing to read too, which also makes you a better writer.
I didn't want to cut you off. You said it right. I mean, you have to read in order to be a good writer, and also reading takes time. I
Yeah,
dedicate 45 minutes of my day. It's the first thing I do every day. I don't
yeah,
have children, right? It's the first thing I do every day, and I know it just you have to read.
yeah. It's
Right.
smart. I mean, it's like if you want to learn how to be a chef, you would watch people cook,
Exactly.
and you would. I mean, you don't just you don't just wake up knowing how to write.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, I'm on a big. I'm going through all. I'm trying to finish every Cormac McCarthy, but I'm late to the game. And you know, it's just like I read his stuff, and he writes a novel in a sentence,
Yeah,
and reading. I know by reading that, I'm only going to become a better
right.
writer. No, I
That's
can become a shittier writer by reading him. And yeah, I think people kind of again, I'm so new. You know a lot more authors than I do, but yeah, I'm curious how many authors really read a lot. If they have the time to read, maybe they just
right.
don't have the time. If does Danielle Steele read every day? I don't know. I know she has a giant house in San Francisco.
Say no, but that's okay. Well, I think what happens is like my experience of the last few years, and like I rarely read a novel from beginning to end when I'm working on something because my fear is that I'll begin to mimic that voice or I'll
Correct.
start
Yeah.
to live stuff in a subconscious way. What I find myself doing a lot now as a reader is, well, McCarthy's one of them, but I have, 6, 8, 10 writers that I really love. And I do a lot of rereading. Like I'll just pick up something off the shelf, open up to
Yeah.
wherever, just read 2 or 3
Yeah.
chapters to
Yeah.
get the flow of the language that I love, like to
Yeah.
see how like image driven they are, just to keep it like going, flowing through your
Oh
veins
yeah.
while you're working. And
That's
I
perfect.
find that to be like really helpful. It can be really inspiring too, I think, to realize that you can open up one of these novels anywhere and something's happening and you can see it because it's being created very visually,
Mhm,
and it's interesting,
mhm.
which is like every page of a novel has to be. There is no waiting. People kind of think when they start writing novels like, well, I'm saving this for later.
Nope.
One of the things I learned was like, why the hell would I save anything? And when I learned to take that thing that was on page 50 in that first draft and I put it on page 12, like my novels became much more dynamic and much more like gripping right away.
Like we're not stand-up comedians. We can't save our closing bit for the end. Even stand-up comedians now, with the attention span of people, are taking their closing bit and putting it at the beginning of their
Yeah.
special.
Yeah.
So with a writer, as authors, we have to get readers literally on the first sentence.
Yeah. Absolutely.
You know,
You do.
Yeah. All right. I hate to cut us off because I think Zoom's going to stop this. Michael, we should do this again. I think because we probably got more to talk about.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, this has been a blast. Again, I just want to make sure it doesn't cut us off before I can promote your stuff.
Yeah.
Can you let everyone know what's going on with you right now, where they can kind of find you and?
Yeah, absolutely. My website is michaelfarrissmith.com, and there's all the info there about all my novels, what's going on, any events that may or may not be coming up. It's not any right now. All the reviews, all the where to buy, how to buy, you know, and of course, support your local indies, everyone. Every
Definitely.
chance you get.
Yeah. All right, dude. Thanks so much. Yeah, I think we'll do this again. And maybe I'll get a better Zoom plan. Enjoy the rest of your day, man. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, dude. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
All right, we'll talk soon.
All right, right on.
Later.